I used to think stories like this only existed on the internet. Dark tales whispered on forums, exaggerated accounts meant to scare people who couldn't sleep at night. I never thought I'd be the one telling one, but here I am. And even now, part of me wishes I had just ignored what I saw that night. It was late, around 1 in the morning, when I left my friend's apartment in downtown Charleston, West Virginia. The air was heavy with the smell of rain, though the storm had passed hours earlier. The streets glistened, wet and empty, reflecting the weak yellow glow of the streetlights. I remember pulling my jacket tighter, not because it was cold, but because of how still everything felt. Usually, even at that hour, you might expect to hear a car in the distance, or the muffled sound of a TV spilling out of an apartment window. But that night, there was nothing. Just silence, thick and absolute. I was halfway down the block when I noticed him. At first, I thought it was just another pedestrian, a tall man in a faded suit, his clothes hanging loose as though he had borrowed them from someone larger. He stood beneath a flickering street lamp, head tilted slightly downward. And then he moved. Not walked. Moved. His steps were exaggerated, almost theatrical. He swung his arms too far, bent his knees too much, as though mocking the very act of walking. There was a strange rhythm to him, like a dancer performing without music. Every twist of his body, every tilt of his head, seemed rehearsed but wrong. And he was smiling. That smile is something I'll never forget. It wasn't a friendly grin, nor the drunken smile of a man stumbling home from a bar. It was too wide, too fixed, stretching across his face in a way that looked painful, unnatural. His eyes stayed locked on me the entire time, unblinking, shining faintly under the streetlight. I slowed my pace, hoping he would pass by or turn down another street. But he didn't. Instead, he matched me, step for step. When I walked, he walked. When I stopped, he froze mid-motion, his limbs twisted at odd angles, still grinning. The longer I watched, the more I realized he wasn't across the street anymore. Somehow, with every pause, every blink, the distance between us grew smaller, even though I never saw him cross. I quickened my pace, heart pounding. My footsteps echoed on the wet pavement, and his echoed too, but not in sync. His were delayed, just slightly, as though mocking mine. When I turned onto my street, I dared one last glance over my shoulder. He was closer. Much closer. He stood perfectly still beneath another streetlight, arms dangling loosely, head tilted so far to the side it looked broken. And yet, the smile hadn't changed. If anything, it had grown wider. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran. The world blurred around me as I sprinted toward my apartment building. I didn't hear him chasing, but every time I glanced back, he was there. Closer. Always closer. His movements weren't fast, but somehow he was gaining on me, sliding forward with impossible speed. When I finally reached my building, I fumbled with the keys, hands trembling so violently I nearly dropped them. I shoved the door shut behind me, bolted it, and leaned against the wood, chest heaving. For hours I sat in silence, every muscle tensed, listening for footsteps in the hall. None came. By sunrise, I almost convinced myself it hadn't been real. A trick of the light, exhaustion, too much coffee, anything but what I knew I had seen. For the next few days, life returned to a fragile kind of normal. I went to work, made small talk with coworkers, even laughed once or twice. But something lingered. I found myself staring at reflective surfaces too long, thinking I'd see him behind me. When I walked home, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck rise, convinced he was nearby. Sleep became difficult. Every creak of the building, every sigh of the pipes sent me sitting upright in bed. And yet nothing happened. Until tonight. I was lying in bed, trying to convince myself that I was safe. My apartment was locked, my phone on the nightstand, the hum of the refrigerator in the next room the only sound. For a moment, I almost believed it. But then that feeling came back. The heavy weight in the air, the prickling of skin, the absolute certainty that I wasn't alone. My eyes drifted to the door of my bedroom. It was ajar, just slightly, a dark sliver of the hallway visible through the gap. And that's when I saw him. He was standing there, perfectly still, his face half hidden in shadow, but his teeth caught the light. That same awful smile stretched wider than ever. His head tilted, his body frozen in that grotesque dancer's pose. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He only stared at me through the gap in the door, and then, so slowly I thought I was imagining it, the door began to open.